Hi everyone, my name's Ash and I'm one of the founders of the Hawke Conservancy Trust. I've come on today just to tell you a little bit about Reggie's Wildflower Meadow. We're celebrating at the Hawke Conservancy. It's our 25th anniversary of the creation of Reggie's Meadow. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about the history and how it all came about. My parents used to farm on the site of the Hawke Conservancy back in the 1950s, and in the 1960s they opened a wildlife park. But to help raise the capital to build the collection, they had to sell off part of the farm, and it's something that my dad always regretted. He always said a man who has land has wealth, and he didn't like the idea of selling it. We later on became the Hawke Conservancy, and we started to give flying demonstrations, and all of our displays used to take place in the lower arena. And often my father would be commentating and I'd be flying the birds, and the birds would fly all the way up the field and then fly over the hedge by the beech trees and then just disappear. And then they'd fly into the Cholderton Valley and just soar beautifully in the valley. Of course, the visitors never got the chance to see it because they were always located in the lower arena. And I used to run up and watch them through a gap in the hedge. And my poor dad used to have to commentate with no birds flying around. So we always knew that if the land adjacent to the trust came up for sale, then we must really do our very best to try and purchase it. And in 1994 it happened. And we put in a bid, and we were lucky enough to buy 7 acres for the Hawke Conservancy. My dad was absolutely thrilled about it, that he'd actually got the land back. Very sadly, in 95 he died, 1995, and so as a family we wanted to do something which would be a memorial to him, and he loved wildflowers. When he got fed up with the public, which was quite often, we used to send him away to a place called the Vale of the White Horse to look at wildflowers, and he would come back a completely different person. He loved a book called The Diary of an Edwardian Lady, and he used to collect flowers and press them back in the days when you were allowed to, and he'd just be completely rejuvenated. And then a few weeks later he'd get grumpy, and then we'd send him away. I'll give you an idea actually of just how grumpy he could get. Some of you will remember my dad giving commentaries. He would start the display and ask everybody to sit in their seats and not to move while the birds are flying, and then we'd lock the gate at the bottom of the arena, and it had a big sign on it saying "Stop, danger, do not enter." Nowadays, if you come and visit, there's normally a member of staff or a really kind volunteer that has a chat to you and asks you to wait and then escorts you to the arena. But in those days, there was just he and I and a sign. And inevitably, a visitor would open the gate and come through while the display was taking place. And my father would do this. He'd stop the display, and then he'd speak over the microphone so all the other visitors could hear. And he'd say, "Stand still." And the whole audience would look back at this poor soul that had opened the gate. And then he'd say, "Are you foreign?" And the visitor used to sort of shake their head. "Is reading an issue? I'll understand if reading's a problem for you. It's not, you can read." "Then why did you open the gate? Did you not see the sign, man? Damn, it's big enough. You, sir, are the reason why the public liability is so damned high at this organisation. No, you've ruined the whole show. Come up now and sit down." And this poor visitor used to walk up the field with all the other visitors sort of tittering, you know, because he just got a telling off. And the visitor would try and sit at the far end of the arena, as far away from my dad as possible. And just before he sat down, he used to administer the coup de grace. He'd say, "Don't sit there, man. There's none of us that trust you. Come to the centre where I can watch you." And the poor visitor would have to sit opposite my father for the rest of the display. So it was really good to get him to go away and look at wildflowers. So as a family, we decided that we would have an arena there, and we'd fly our birds so everybody could see the birds fly, and we would call it Reggie's Meadow, and we would seed it with wildflowers. In the first year, we grew the most wonderful crop of thistles you've ever seen. just 7 acres of thistles, and the man who we bought the seed from told us that we would need to cut them down by hand, otherwise it would inhibit the wildflowers coming through. So we spent night after night going out with rip hooks and cutting thistles down. In the second year we got some flowers but not very many, so I called the chap back in and said, listen, you know, we don't seem to have very many flowers. And he looked at me and said, Ash, are you renowned for being a patient man? And I said, well, no, not really. He said, well, if you're creating a wildflower meadow, you need to have patience. He said, if you don't have all the flowers and grasses that I've sold you in 7 years, I'll be more than happy to let you have some more. And he left. And he was right. It took 7 years, and slowly but surely more and more flowers and grasses came. Every year the meadow was cut and it took the nitrogen out of the ground. The ground became poorer, and that really helped the wildflowers flourish. It's been wonderful over the last 25 years. So many thousands of people have really enjoyed seeing the meadow and walking through it. Indeed, it's inspired some people to create their own wildflower meadows, and lots of wildlife has benefited from it as well. We have kestrels breeding nearby, we have grey partridge that come and eat and feed on the insects, and in the summer it's just a plethora of butterflies. I was told by a very good friend, and it was really good sound advice. He said to me, young Ash, he said, that was a good investment buying that land. And I said, Alan, what makes you say that? He said, well, it's still cheaper than carpet to buy. That's very true. And he said, let's face it, it ain't gonna blow away. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all get the chance to come back and enjoy Reggie's Meadow this summer. Have a walk round, sit on one of the benches, and just soak up the atmosphere and the feeling of being somewhere very special. Take care, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye bye.